So as we start analyzing functions, the first thing that we're going to look at is whether or not the graph is increasing or decreasing. A graph is increasing if the y values increase as the x values increase. It's decreasing if the y values decrease as the x values increase. So in a nutshell, this means that we're always reading left to right. So what we want to know is, as we read left to right, is the graph going up or is the graph going down? Think roller coaster. Again, left to right. If we were watching the roller coaster go left to right, if the people on the roller coaster are heading upwards, it's increasing. If they're going down, it's decreasing. To describe when a graph is increasing or decreasing, we're going to give the domain for that portion. Remember that domain are the x values. So you look at the portion when the graph is increasing, so I'm just going to point that out right here. And we're going to look at those values on the x-axis. So there's increasing. I'm going to trace the next section. So we have two portions of the graph that are increasing. We have from x equals, well, what we can really say actually here, based on that arrow, we're going from negative infinity all the way up to negative 3. And it's increasing, increasing from x equals 1 through x equals 1, 2, 3, 4. You might have noticed that I used interval notation. If you've forgotten what interval notation is and what the different brackets mean, you might want to take a look at this slide right here, pause the video, take some notes, because we're going to be using interval notation a lot. We refer to the turning points as the place where the graph switches between being increasing or decreasing. In this case, over here on the far right, it switched from increasing to neither. It sometimes might be hard for you to say if there was a single point or not, and you'll learn a little bit more about that later in the year and in calculus. But to the best of your ability, you're going to find that single point where the graph switches from being an increasing to a decreasing. So the turning points, there are 3 in this graph. We have a turning point at negative 1, 2, 3. And then we would give that, let's say that's 1. And then we would have one at 1, negative 1. And then our last turning point happens at 4, 2. These points here, the x values, should be familiar because we already gave the domains of those increasing and decreasing sections. So those endpoints, or those turning point, those x values, should appear in the domains we just gave. You might want to rewind to see how I answered these 2 questions, but you're going to try them on your own. Where is the graph increasing? So keep in mind how I answered that question. Where is the graph decreasing? And what are the turning points of the graph? And for reference, I guess I should add let's call those 1 unit each.